Hey guys, Aubrey here. Well, I finally got closed beta access for Rennsport. I did apply for this quite some time ago. I know there have been a lot of people trying to get their hands on this. So I finally got access key for it, so I've been having a bit of a go on it. So this video is basically going to be, I'm not going to be going into all the cars and tracks in this video. I may do other videos on some of the other cars and tracks, because there are a few more cars and tracks than I expected. The last time I saw a video on this current state of game, there was only a few cars available. I think there was the Praga, which apparently was not very good at all, so I mean, I haven't even test driven that car yet, but we've got a few tracks there, but I'm going to go into a few today. We're going to be in Nürburgring, where you'll see now I'll be driving the BMW M4. I'm going to start by saying I did all my driving with my super ultra wide, my Odyssey G9, so it's very difficult to record gameplay on that, so I had to record the gameplay via the replay, so I just thought I'd let you guys know there is a bit of a difference in frame rate. While I was playing on my G9 5120x1440, I believe it is, I was basically locked at 120 frames per second, which is fine. Another thing to note too, I did have crashing with the Unreal Engine. I did have game crash while recording only from the replay. So far I haven't had any crashes during gameplay, so I just thought I'd note that. So first up, as soon as you load the game, it does load quite quickly. There's no crazy amount of splash screens, it does load in very quickly. And the setup process was quite easy as well. Setting up my wheel, I have the CSL DD Fanatec with the Fanatec pedals as well, V3s. Everything was very, very easy and straightforward to set up. I did have to invert my force feedback, guys, so if you ever get access to this, keep in mind as soon as you jump in game, when you set up your wheel and pedals, take your hands off the wheel, and if it goes like crazy, then you know you have to invert your force feedback on that. And all my graphics settings, I'm using the 4090, so everything's on Epic, and there is an option for DLSS. There's no frame generation or anything like that, but DLSS is available. I didn't feel the need to use that with 4090. It was awesome frame rate. While I'm talking about frame rate, I will say that during gameplay there was a lot of texture pop-in. It did seem to sort of go away a lot the more you play, the more laps you do, but there was definitely evident big texture pop-ins, like buildings will just pop in as you get fairly close to them, and there was stutters as well in the game, and I think they were due to the pop-in textures as well. So other than that, the performance was quite smooth. So as soon as you load into a car, with my G9 I noticed I didn't have to do much at all with setting up FOV or my scene position. Amazingly enough, it was all perfectly aligned. The HUD looks fantastic too. Does remind me a little bit of, especially the tyres, reminds me of ACC, but everything is in proportion on the super ultra wide. There was no problems there. The field of view looks fantastic, and then just basically the cockpit detail was very crisp. Now the first thing I noticed, you'll see I'm driving the BMW to start off with, but the first car I drove before I recorded anything was the Porsche GT3. And the first thing I noticed as soon as the engine started, there seemed to be delay from throttle to hearing the first initial rev. So if you just give the engine a bit of a rev, you'd hear the audio for that rev. It just seemed like it was a bit delayed. I've just never heard it do that in any other sim, so I don't know if that's the thing with the Porsche, but it didn't do it with any other car that I drove in this sim. So this game feels like a very much 50-50 mix to me, in my opinion, of Assetto Corsa Competizione and Race Room. It just feels, especially in the force feedback, it feels very similar to them both, and similar with the physics too. There was some strange things I'll get into a little bit later with the force feedback and the feel of the physics through the force feedback. But initially, as soon as you start driving, it does feel very similar to Race Room and Assetto Corsa Competizione, especially the braking and the brakes. It does feel quite similar to Assetto Corsa Competizione. You I don't really hear much of the ABS though in the GT3 cars. I know in the ACC you can hear the ABS, but I couldn't really hear it, so I didn't really feel like I had any ABS working. The car seemed to stop. I did not lock up at all, so I don't know. I haven't even tried to lock up, but I don't believe I had one lock up. The next thing I noticed driving, as soon as you hit a ripple strip, you don't feel the ripple strip as such through the force feedback, which is a bit strange. Don't know if that's just an issue on my end or whether it's something that'll be implemented later on. Let's just remember that this is closed beta, so there's definitely going to be issues. But that's one of the things I did notice. You could feel the curb, so you could feel the bump going up a curb or on, a big ripple strip, but you couldn't feel the vibration of the ripple strip in my force feedback anyway. I heard reports of as soon as you hit the ripple strips, it does tend to pull you in. It definitely does that. It didn't seem to be doing it too badly for me, but then there were the occasions where it did feel like a little bit unrealistically it would be pulling me into the grass a little bit too hard. Also of note with the force feedback, there is road detail in the game, but sometimes, not all the time, and depending on the car and track, it felt like you'd be going over. It'd feel like your tyres are flat spotted even if they're not, and that would not be all the time. So you'd say you'd be coming into a corner and you'd be going over bumps, but it would feel perfectly gapped like you've got a flat spot, and that didn't do it all the time. So there was that. It just felt like you're running over perfectly oriented bumps in the road with perfect spacing in between, if you know what I mean. So it felt exactly like a flat spot, but then it would go away. So there was that, but that wasn't a game breaker. That's obviously going to get ironed out. I'm pretty sure all the force feedback problems will get ironed out as time goes by, but that's just my initial thought on that. So really overall force feedback wasn't too bad. I wouldn't say it's amazing. A lot of the cars still feel like they don't have enough weight, so to me there doesn't seem to be enough full feel between the force feedback and the tyres, so you should be able to feel the tyre load all the time, and in my book that's what I believe to have a good feel in force feedback with sim racing, is to have a good connection between force feedback and your tyres. You should be able to feel all that. Just the weight of the car, they're just like the Porsche Cup car. I'll show a bit of gameplay of that, but the Porsche Cup car felt very lightweight, especially in the back, and just didn't feel like there was much weight in the force feedback. So therefore, if you don't feel the weight of the car, you're not getting everything feeling that you need through the force feedback in the car. And while we're on that, and I did notice this mainly with the Porsche Cup car, the back end seems to come out, which it will, because it's the Cup car. It's not a full-blown GT3 car, but when the back starts to come out, sometimes it'll get away from you before you even feel it in the force feedback. So what I mean is the back of the car will come round before you feel it on the steering, and then there's a delay before you'll feel it. You can catch slides, but sometimes it catches you by surprise. Again, that's probably going to be ironed out, but all these problems I'll report, and I'm sure people will be reporting these issues, and they'll get fixed over time. Rennsport's also got some front-wheel drive cars, touring cars in there. One of them particularly I drove was the Hyundai. I drove the Hyundai. The force feedback in that is a little bit exaggerated. The understeer effect in that car feels like it's too exaggerated to me. So the way that you drive front-wheel drive race cars, as soon as you go under load acceleration, obviously it's driving the front wheels, so the feel in the steering gets lighter when you accelerate, and that's a fairly normal feeling with a front-wheel drive car. But a perfect example of what front-wheel drive cars should feel like is R Factor 2. Also, a lot of the cars some of the cars in Automobilista 2 can feel very good with the front-wheel drive force feedback. So with Rennsport it feels very exaggerated, it just feels very bumpy and unfiltered. It can't be a filter in the force feedback with my wheel because it doesn't do it in all cars. It was only really that car. Well, that's the only front wheel drive car I drove in the game anyway. So I'm pretty sure they'll fix that anyway. But the car was fairly fun to drive. The sounds were pretty good in all the cars. Not amazing. They've got a lot of work to do with the sounds. There is a big issue with external sounds as well in replay. I don't know if that's a problem on my end, but I wouldn't have thought it is. But the sounds are very broken in replay, especially in the external sounds. The tracks that I've driven in, look quite good too. You know, the detail, the graphics, they look okay. I mean, let's face it, this is a sim racer. You know, this is a proper simulated racing game, so you know, graphics are not meant to be number one. Let's face it, iRacing still doesn't look amazing. Rennsport's still got a long way to go. It looks okay. It does look quite similar to Assetto Corsa Competizione. It also runs Unreal Engine anyway. So I think Rennsport does have a long way to go. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I haven't heard a great deal about it with other YouTubers or sim racers on YouTube. I've seen a few videos on it, but nothing recently. There was a bit more content than I did realise that has been added since those videos I watched. But so they're obviously still working on it. But in my initial thoughts though, Rennsport does feel like it's going to be a GT3 style simulator, and there are going to be other cars in there, but to me it seems like it's going to be a GT3 style simulator, and I just don't know if we need another GT3 simulator. Assetto Corsa Competizione nails that. It is probably the #1 GT3 simulator. It also does probably the best GT4 cars as well. And that, you know, I just think on that, if Rennsport want to make it a really good simulator, they need a lot more cars, a lot of tracks, lots of different types of style of racing. You know, just going to have to add things that we've not seen before. And also remembering that Assetto Corsa 2 is going to be on the way as well. And when that comes out, I'm pretty sure there's going to be huge mod support for that too, because you know, I just think it'd be silly if they didn't implement that. So I think Rennsport's got a way to go if they want this to be a mainstream sim for people to be using, or for esports. But we'll see how it goes. I may do other videos on this, guys. Might just try some other cars, some other tracks, and see how we go as it gets updated. But anyway, guys, I'll leave you with a little bit more driving, if there's any left at all. I didn't have a huge amount of footage. I will do more driving, like I say. But anyway, guys, if you like my content, just hit that thumbs up. It really helps my channel. If you want to see more of my content, just hit the subscribe button. And we'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks for watching.